It's a beautiful, crisp morning along the San Francisco Bay in the Berkeley Marina. While boaters are getting their crafts ready for a day out in the bay, and rowers are enjoying the calm these pleasant waters bring, 60-year-old Bob Padilla, his wife Bonnie, and their three-legged dog Babette get to enjoy each other's company on Bob's boat, the La Bonita. Today, Bob's life is much different, thanks to a self-diagnosis he gave himself back in 2000 while at paramedic school.
My health issues really didn't start until about 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, I actually was going through paramedic school and diagnosed myself with diabetes from the 9 or 10 symptoms in emergency setting that you would have. I think I had 8 of them.
Bob's health issues continued to persist even after his diabetes diagnosis. While at the age of 57, he suffered a heart attack, which was followed by a triple bypass, and then 9 short months later, he had his right leg amputated. While most nearing the age of 60 might just give up and throw in the towel, Bob knew that he needed to make a change, and fast, because time was running out.
Both my parents had histories of diabetes and died of complications from, so I couldn't plead ignorance as to that was going to be a factor in my life. I thought that if I stayed physically active, like I was swimming a lot, and I was trying to keep my weight down, I was never a big alcohol drinker, that I would avoid the ramifications of acute diabetes, but that was wrong. And I had to learn, after the heart attack, that was 3 years ago, and then the leg amputation 9 months later, I had to take a different path. I realized after the day after that, the surgery for the leg, I thought, whatever I'm doing, it's not working out. I just had a heart attack, which I thought I'd never get, and I just had my leg amputated, so I've got to do some things. So I made 3 promises to myself that I would do the Alcatraz swim. The surgeon said I'd be able to do everything I did prior to losing the leg. It'd be up to me to get the strength back to do it, but it would still be possible. So one was to do the Alcatraz swim, the other was to go back to abalone diving, which I have been doing for 30 years. That and to get in the best shape I could for my age and my ability.
Bob didn't wait long to begin his rehab from the leg amputation. Just 1 week after his surgery, he was out on his boat, the La Bonita, doing intense therapy. He credits his boat for getting him back on the road to recovery.
My epiphany was after losing the leg, I said, I don't have time to waste. If I'm going to be able to get stronger again, it's got to be right now. I can't say I'm going to do it in 6 more months, because things may get worse. So for me the week after the operation, my therapy was to come to the boat, because I knew I could be mobile on the boat. I didn't need anybody's help. There's handholds everywhere. I started doing my crunches, and I went from doing 10 to at some points now I'm doing 500 with the chair. I do dips in the cabin sole, and at first you're not going to be like when you're 20 years old and you can crank out 10 with no problem. I could never do that as a younger man, but I started doing it 5 at a time, and I could do 5, and then pretty soon 5. Well, let's try 6, and then I'm doing 10.
Bonnie credits Bob's desire to get in shape and being active as the key drivers to saving his life.
He didn't look at it as, geez, I'm 57 now, I'm not going to be able to deal with this. It was definitely more of, okay, now I got to figure this out. Obviously the game has changed. I want to keep swimming, I want to keep diving. How am I going to make it happen? So it's going to sound crazy, but it's kind of saved his life, because he has become more focused. He listens to his body more. He didn't used to before. He wants to remain active. There's been so many situations where he couldn't go diving, or he couldn't go swimming, or he couldn't get out of bed. And so he's focused more on what it's going to take to do that.
Many leading nutritionists and fitness experts say that having a concrete and measurable outcome is one of the most important things you can do for achieving your most desired goals. And for Bob, it's training for a 6.2 long-distance swim in the cold waters of the San Francisco Bay Area. He'll be attempting to swim from the Golden Gate Bridge all the way to the San Francisco Bay Bridge.
It's never too late. I'm 60 now, and I feel like I'm only now beginning to get an understanding of what being physically fit for my age. I look at my peer group, And most of my peer group are not physically fit, but the ones that are, they stand out like sore thumbs. And there's a mutual respect when I walk by somebody who's 50 or 60. I met a guy the other day who was 67 years old, and I had a comment on how physically fit he looked. And he smiled and he said, well, I'm 67 years old. He used to be a former football player. He didn't look like that. He looked like a goddamn gazelle, you know? And I thought, this guy is 7 years older than I am, and he looks phenomenal. I thought, you know, that's all within the realm of possibility, unless you listen to other people that say you can't do that because they can't. We don't look like that. We're 60 years old. No, you look like that because you chose to look like that, because you chose to feel like that. At some point along the way, you made a conscious decision not to try. And I'm believing that the alternative to that is, well, let's just give it a push. Let's just see how far I can take this and see how far I can go with it. I had no idea that I'd be thinking about doing a 6.2 mile swim as opposed to a 1.2 miles, the Alcatraz swim. I'd done it before I knew I could do it, but you really can't say you can do something unless you do it. So once I did that, I realized that really wasn't very hard. Let's make something a little bit more self-challenging, which is that 6.2 miles. So that's my goal this year. I'm going to be 60. That's 6.2 miles. I think that's a worthy goal.